Now joining us, T.R. Donaghue from the Faster Times. He has written a piece called "Why Do Republicans Insist on Fanning the Flames of Domestic Terrorism?" T.R., welcome to the Young Turks.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
We appreciate your time. So you're saying that we have taken a hot tub time machine back to 1994.
That's right. The hot tub time machine to 94. It really is sort of eerie. You know, as I said in my piece, you know, if you woke up, Rip Van Winkle style, you might think you're in 94. You've got a moderate Democrat in the White House, Democrats running Congress. Health care reform has been on the table for a while, and you wake up and open the newspaper, and there's a bunch of militiamen getting arrested up there in Michigan and surrounding states this last weekend.
Duke is in the Final Four.
Well, there you go. Well, they're always in the Final Four, aren't they?
Exactly.
You know, I think too that the Southern Poverty Law Center did has been obviously they monitor these things, and there were 42 of these armed militias in the country in 2008, and there's 127 today, and there's a really similar spike in 1993 after Bill Clinton was elected.
So, of course, we have to ask the question: what is it about Democrats in office that gets the militia all riled up?
You know, that's a really good question. I mean, there's this strain in American politics, and Richard Hofstadter's article in 1964 in Harper's talks about the paranoid style in American politics, and he isn't being necessarily partisan in that. He traces back, all the way back to colonial times, but then he brings us up to sort of the modern right, and there is this sort of strain amongst some of the followers. Going back to Senator McCarthy, when Richard Nixon was in Congress, when he was a young congressman from California in 1947, he led the charge against Alger Hiss, and then it manifested itself in the John Birch Society. And so there's some usefulness to the elected Republicans right now. They find this useful. It's energy, and it gets their base riled up. Problem is, as we saw in 1995, most famously we saw in 95 in the Oklahoma City bombing, some of these people take these things too far. They don't understand when John Boehner or Michelle Bachmann are ranting on about losing their country that it's sort of kabuki, it's sort of stage theater. People take this stuff too far.
TR, we know Frank Rich wrote an article over the weekend about how all this anger had nothing to do with health care. That's something we've been saying on the show for months now. These people don't know any of the intricacies of the law. They don't care. The rage is obviously about something else. But you know what? I don't even think it's about the government, because George Bush grew the government, much larger than it was, not only in actually growing the budget and the deficit, etc., but in actually doing warrantless surveillance. And if they cared about the Constitution, these guys consider themselves constitutionalists. George Bush did actual and real harm to the Constitution, and kind of did it in a big brother way. So they would have been more angry at Bush than anyone else, than any Democrat. So I don't think this is about the government either. I think this is a cultural thing where they feel there's rage about losing, quote unquote, their country.
It's an entitlement issue. I mean, I'll let TR talk about it, but from where I'm, as I listened to Cenk and read what you wrote, TR, it seems to me like a lot of it has to do with entitlement, that this is our country, it has to look a certain way, it has to sound a certain way, and as soon as things that are not how we want them come in, then we start our campaign of fear, and fear has been a good ticket to at least their political success.
No, I really couldn't agree with you guys more. The hypocrisy on display here. In the 1990s, this movement was driven. They were concerned about government infringement on civil liberties. That was one of the driving factors. In fact, in the Department of Homeland Security's report that came out last April, this was one of the things they cite. Well, where were all these people from 2000 to 2008 that were so worried about civil liberties? Well, they were nowhere to be found, because one of their own, tribesmen was in the White House. And so it's a cultural thing. I'm reticent to say that it's out and out racism. I think there's certainly some racism. I don't think that's sort of undeniable. But yeah, it is. It's obviously not about whatever the issues are that they're trying to dress their rage up in.
And racism also, I keep thinking about Bill Clinton and his the impeachment over, his sexual indiscretions and marital infidelities and whatnot was, of course, no more about that than this is about health care. And this is, I think that this is it's almost differentism. It's not necessarily racism, and it's although it manifests itself as racism now because we have our first president of color, and they find that they get a lot of pleasure out of saying he doesn't have a birth certificate. But the point is that they see something that is different from the way they want it to be. They saw sort of a good old boy from Arkansas who was lived at a different cultural level than they did, and they didn't like it. They see a president like this come in with a lot of hope behind him, and they don't like that either.
It's really the reactionary sort of fear of the other, whatever the other is. It isn't just about just racism. It's a fear of the other, and it's a fear of homosexuals. It's a fear of educated white folks, from universities. If they don't understand it, if it's different, there seems to be this rage, and that it unfortunately manifests itself too often in violent outbursts.
I think they watch too much Lost, and they're afraid of the others. Okay, now, but by the way, that's indisputably correct, right? Because under Bill Clinton, they were also in a rage, right? Yeah. Now, of course, they're in a bigger range because Obama's even more of an other, right? Yeah. If in that way of framing it. But TR, I want to ask you finally, and we're talking to TR Donaghue from Faster Times, who wrote about this. How scared should we be? Okay, so kind of a funny way of putting it, but how much concern should we have about these militia guys? Obviously, they've already done some significant damage. We stopped the Hutari. How much more is on the way?
I think we're going to see sort of consistent, from reading reports and reading people who are really subject matter experts on this, I think we're going to see this sort of thing consistently for the next few years, for pretty much the entire Obama presidency. Hopefully, with monitoring, we're not going to have another Oklahoma City bombing. The lone wolf, lone actor type, a guy who I don't know wants to fly his plane into the IRS, there's not a whole lot anybody's going to be able to do to stop that. I don't think you need to sort of cower in fear, but as Dave Newert from Crooks and Liars and famously of Orkiness has pointed out, you actually stand a better chance of getting killed by domestic terrorists than you do a foreign terrorist in this country. So, and the other thing is your fear level, and some of mine comes from my interest in this topic, is that I have friends who work in abortion clinics. I have friends that work in the labor movement. I have friends that work in places that would be targets.
You're starting to make me uncomfortable, too. You have a friend who's in a union?
I know. Can you believe that? My father is in a union, even.
Okay. Well, please stop.
We have
please
to.
Stop.
Yeah. Who's booking these guests? What of course, always trying to be curative. The politics of this, in an analytical way, the politics of this are based on paranoia, or based on fear. You don't hear the right wing decrying this presence the way the left wing or the Democrats or progressives or whatever label you want to put on them is decrying it. And do you think it's because they see it as a part of their success? And I'm not saying that I do. I'm just curious as to if you do.
Oh, I do. Rick Perlstein wrote a great book a year or two ago called Nixon Land, where he really sort of gets to the root of this sort of divisive politics that Republicans have used and used successfully since the time of Nixon, but goes all the way back to Nixon in Congress and as I say, McCarthy and the John Birch Society. They do. This is what they do. They drive this wedge. They say to their base, there's these people over here, they want to take away what you have, and they want to give it to others. That came through in Ronald Reagan talking about welfare queens and Cadillacs, and it's still going on today. And so this is what they know. This is their bread and butter. And for the time being, they're still sort of hanging around the Republicans in fits and starts by going to this well. Now, I think over time, obviously, demographic changes in this country, the old white vote is rapidly going to become a minority, and this formula isn't going to work for them. But for the next, few election cycles, at least, probably more than that, this is still their bread and butter. It works. So.
And I just wish they would take that anger and that the diatribes they have on the right wing against the others that are actually taking all your money and that are receiving all this welfare, and if they direct it in the right place against corporate America, that's actually taking all your money and getting government welfare, they would be in great shape. But of course, they're not because they get paid by those guys.
Right. I say that's exactly it. That's exactly the point I was going to make. There is, it's sort of like they're waving a shiny object at their base with one hand, hoping that they don't look at what's going on in the other. Dick Armey and Freedom Works sort of pushing all of this, and this they rile up their base about these sorts of issues. I think in large part to distract them from some of the other shenanigans.
Yeah, just a last question for you, TR.
Sure.
It's TR Donaghue from Faster Times we're talking with. When did this start? I mean, was Dwight Eisenhower doing this, or do you trace it to Nixonian? The paranoia I know is informed McCarthy and the Alger Hiss stuff with Nixon, as you mentioned. But when did it become so pervasive?
I really think it was Nixon. I think Nixon's made a conscious decision when he ran in '68 and again in '72 that he was going to seize on the unrest and the nervousness in Middle America, and he was going to say, "You see, here's the problem," and divide. And at that time, it was a winning strategy numbers wise. He in '68 and '72 won pretty healthily. So. I really think right now what we're seeing now is direct descended from Nixon, and like you said, there's strains that go back another 40 years or 30 years before that. But
so it's all Sirhan's fault, basically.
It's certainly, yeah.
And if you ask Jesse Ventura, of course, it wasn't Sirhan. He was programmed by the CIA.
Of course, that might be the worst show on television.
Oh, the Venturas? I didn't say anything. All right, T.R. Donaghue from the Faster Times. Very good article. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Right.